All right. Okay, we should be recording now. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get this party started. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to Kalamazoo Venture Tuesday. Everyone, please do me a favor and mute your microphone if you're not speaking, but do feel free to leave your camera on. We like to see smiling faces. For those of you who have not joined us before, Kalamazoo Venture Tuesday is an opportunity to see inside the mind of investors as they provide feedback to company presenters. The purpose of Kalamazoo Venture Tuesday is not to secure an immediate investment, but rather it's designed as a teaching opportunity for both participating companies and for members of our audience. Each of our quarterly meetings features a panel of 3 active investors, and we have 3 startup or early stage companies that are presenting. Each presenter will have 10 minutes to pitch, followed by 10 minutes of feedback from the investor panel. We will not take questions from the audience. However, you may ask a question or make a comment in the chat, and that's located in that little conversation bubble in the top bar of your screen. We're going to get started first by introducing our esteemed panel of investors. And Rupert, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. So if you can unmute yourself and say hello to everyone.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Dr. Rupert Vessey. I'm the Chief Scientist for Flagship Pioneering, which is a fund-based founder of biotech companies based in Boston. And before that, I was President of Research and Early Development at Celgene and then Bristol Myers Squibb. I'm a physician scientist by background, by the way.
Wonderful. Glad to have you with us. And this is not your first rodeo with us. This is your second or third time, I think, with us. So thanks for coming back. Yep. Thanks. Okay. Our next person we're going to introduce is Mike Flanagan. He's with Spark Capital and the Michigan Angel Fund. So Mike, unmute and say hi.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me, Sandra. That's right. I'm Mike Flanagan. I'm with Ann Arbor Spark, which manages our Spark Capital Fund. And then we also run the Michigan Angel Fund, which is about 160-person angel group in Michigan. So happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you. And our last panelist is Doran York. Doran, have you logged in? I'm looking at all my people to see. I don't think so yet. Okay. Well, if Doran joins us, we will have him introduce himself. But in the meantime, we can go ahead and start. 2 panelists, better than none. So let's get rocking, okay? We have 3 really exciting companies today. And we are going to start off with Kevin. Kevin, you're with Glid Tech. So why don't we go ahead and have you unmute? Yep. And bring up your slide deck.
Please let me know when you can see it.
There we go. Okay, and I'm going to set my timer just so I can keep track if you'll set yours as well. And I guess we are ready. Whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and begin.
Okay, perfect. So hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Kevin DeMoe. I'm the founder and CEO of Glid. A little bit about my background. I've been in logistics for about 23 years. If I zoom in further than that, I'm Panamanian. I was raised in Panama near the Panama Canal. And I came to the United States when I was 14, joined the military at the age of 17 because I wanted to do my part right after 9/11. And then I'm a retired veteran. I served 6 years active duty, 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan, and then moved to California as a firefighter. Since California Air National Guard is a 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, spent a lot of my time in the startup world. My first startup was with SpaceX. I was the chief engineer and the founder of the flight module logistics department at SpaceX. I developed all the shipping apparatus that they currently utilize to transport the rocket. Did that for 4 years, moved on to traditional aerospace, and did a stint at Northrop Grumman on the F-35 fighter jet program as a mechanical engineer and a weapon bay door, and then pushed off to other startups, Romeo Power, XOS Trucks, Canoe, and then finally Harley Davidson before I started Glid. And I started Glid because I wanted to really change the way that we move and move things permanently. So we're Glid, and we're here to make logistics more effortless and efficient. The problem right now is the only way that you can move vehicles from road to rail is via a process called transloading. Transloading involves multiple steps, multiple pieces of equipment, a lot of resources, is very capital intensive, and is extremely slow. It takes maybe 2 to 3 weeks for a container to move from ship to rail. and all the steps in between. Our solution is very simple, very eloquent. We use one move, one vehicle, minimal crew, sometimes no crew on site, a remote operator at home that controls 4 to 5 vehicles. It's very dynamic. It essentially can load itself for one of our models, and we can move on from road to rail within 15 minutes to 24 hours, depending on what's in our way. Our solution is what we call the fix for the infrastructure issues that we're currently experiencing here within the United States as we look to reindustrialize. We do that by bypassing the transfer stations, that first process that we spoke about. With that, we'll increase utilization on rail throughout the United States. We target Class 2 and Class 3 short line railroads, regional railroads, because we operate within the first mile, and we feel that's the most critical piece. You can look at logistics as like a baton race, where one person moves to the next person, moves to the next person. Well, we cover that first and critical first mile. So we increase utilization from a mere 30% that they're looking at right now to about 90%, to leave a little bit of capacity on the back end for any kind of contingency. We optimize freight flows throughout this process, and then with that, we scale growth. This is our solution, Raiden. We unveiled this a couple weeks ago at New Mobility Futures. It is the world's first and only unmanned road-to-rail vehicle. We have a patent on this vehicle as well. We can get any road-based trailer, any rail-based cart with little to no modification. That means we open our Komodo up to everybody, from commercial and all the industries associated with it to defense, and all of the services underneath it as well. We move as a pack or a solo. So we're able to access the rail tracks the same way a higher rail vehicle will as well. We leverage a technology called sensor fusion. So we utilize geospatial mapping and debris avoidance, as you see here. We are an off-road vehicle as well, so we operate in austere environments, not just in garrison commercial side, but in places like Ukraine or Africa as well, where they're building out their infrastructure. We, as a technology, don't have to take a rail siding like most trains. We can take a road siding and follow alongside a train track. And we're not just looking to build here, we're looking to build off planet as well, as we look to be an interplanetary species. We're Glide. Our business model is simple. We are mobility as a service. So essentially we're asset-based operators. You can look at us like a JB Hunt or a Maersk or a Savage. We charge our customers $25,000 a month or $300,000 a year, plus a nominal fee per ton mile. Say we move one 20-foot container 20 miles down the road, so 40-mile round trip, we'll charge only about $150 per container. That greatly offsets the cost of cost of goods sold. For inflation's sake, a typical move of that nature will be about $1,500. So we severely undercut competition. Folks ask me, why so cheap? Well, if you look at how often these ports move commodities, the Port of Long Beach, for example, that is really inefficient, moves 70,000 TEUs per day. So we're not going to compete with them, but however, I feel we can do much better. If we move 100,000 TEUs with one glider, that glider generates $15.3 million in revenue. When our customers sign up with us, they get a glider or a pack, depending on what they need, as well as our proprietary software, Ezra 16, that we unveiled a couple weeks ago as well as in this beta version. And they save about $12.3 million in savings on top of how much money they're able to increase in revenue and throughput. Our target markets are the first mile. We're looking at port drayage, containerization, rails, commercial markets, your lumber, your gas, your waste, and finally something near and dear to me, dual use. Our target market is about a $100 billion TAM. If you zoom out, it's about a $20 trillion TAM globally, supporting 4,600 ports, multiple railroads and industrial parks as well. But our near sum is about $3 to $5 billion. That contributes to some of our active pilots and our near-term customers that we're either signed out or we're in conversations with today. Our traction to date has been incredible. We're in our pre-seed. We just raised our pre-seed and closed it. However, we've built an incredible product with a very nimble team. Ezra 1.6 is in beta, was built by the Narla team. Is the husband and wife, both from Google, NVIDIA, and Amazon. Started at the ranks of interns, moved themselves up to directors or senior directors, and they're operators and tacticians. They built Ezra 1.6 in-house in about 8 weeks, and it's fully functional. No wrappers. It is a great program. Raiden, who you saw the video with, it's in his prototype now. We're in the process of building its brother or sister as well to demonstrate with the Navy. And then the Glider M, it's a man-operated truck or human-operated truck. We have 2 of those vehicles in production with a contract manufacturer called Custom Truck. They're a national provider. They have a partnership with PACCAR. We spent about 9 months in development with them and launched that product out in February for production. It'll come off the line at the end of October, where we'll start to scale and pilot with some of our customers. It does have all the capabilities of Raiden, with the exception it has a hook lift on the back of it to pick up a 20-foot container, so no material conveyance needed there. We are B2B, so we have signed POs with customers from Washington, Oregon, Kansas, as well as up and down California, to include its largest short line railroad, Sierra Northern, as well as the Mendocino Railway. Our traction to date has been, amazing. We have a $250,000 PO, 2 pilots secured in 2024, along with our patent in July. And then 2025 was a takeoff year, $70 million in LOIs, 3 pilots, and then we closed a $3.1 million pre-seed a couple weeks ago with Outlander VC leading the charge. We're forecasted to do about $6.7 million in ARR in 2026. Our competitive landscape, we have a first mover advantage. Everybody else that you see on the screen is either a truck or a train that has put on electrification or autonomy and kind of called it new. Not knocking them, appreciate what they've done. However, we're the ones that have looked at the complete supply chain from end to end, solving for what we call global maxima. So we essentially look at a problem and take it down to first principles. For this problem, we're looking at the 2 corridors and doing corridor balancing between road and rail. So we thought of an end-to-end solution. So road to rail, streamline that, all the material conveyance, solve for labor shortages, as well as reduce costs with a great software combining atoms and bits to synchronize 2 corridors is what we've done. This is our team. You know me. My COO and co-founder is Matt Mueller. I worked with him at SpaceX for about 10 years. He was at Honeywell and Hadrian as well. He led their quality. Chaitali Narla spoke a little bit about her, 16-year veteran from Google, founder at Stripe. She came to Glide in order to help us glide. Tony Petroberg, 35-year aerospace veteran, Boeing, Sikorsky, Bombardier, NASA, and then we brought him in from Matt Bach, where he was doing electrified GLTVs. Rami Jabari, he's our autonomous advisor. He's currently head of robotics and automation at Aramco. He did the same at ExxonMobil. And then finally, our integration engineer, Aniket Mutakar, him and I worked together at Hydroplane, where we built the world's first hydrogen-powered airplane for the Navy and the Army, single prop, not big plane. And he worked at Booz Allen as well. We're currently backed by Outlander, Draper, Veterans Fund, Antler, Capital Factor, and M1C. So the use of funds that we're looking at today, we're looking to raise a $5 million seed round that'll help us deploy with 5 additional customers, and then be able to generate about $6.7 million in addition to the already forecasted ARR that we have. Use of funds will be utilized to streamline OpEx, hire, build more on Ezra 1.6, and deploy more products out in the field. So next time you go ship it, don't ship it, just glide it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, it is time for a little feedback from our wonderful panel. Rupert, I'm going to start with you. What kind of feedback do you have for Kevin?
Well, Kevin, first of all, thanks for all the service that you've given to the country. You amazing contributions and career.
Thank you.
I thought so. First of all, let me say I don't know anything about road to rail transport, so I can't give you any expert comment. But I thought your presentation was interesting and also really well put together. I mean, it had all the things that, if I was asking one of our teams to put together a presentation, something that I knew about, I think it had all the elements. What is the need? You were very clear on that. So why are you doing this? You had, as you moved through it, I started to think, well, I wonder what the competition is. Your next slide was the competition slide, which I liked the way you presented that and put your, your offering, in the context of others in terms of what it could do. You made the case for doing this well, I thought, in terms of, not just the need, but also, the potential value in terms of savings, convenience, getting around manpower shortages. You brought all these things out, which is a good proposition for anybody looking to invest as to why, this would get picked up. And, I can't help but think in the current climate where, we're going to see tariffs on all sorts of goods, if you can take some of the cost out in terms of shipment, that's got to be unbelievably appealing to people who are looking to move goods, from ports around the US. I mean, whether it's worth accentuating that point or whether that's too, politically fraught, I don't know. But I mean, it does definitely occur to me, because I can see you can take cost out of the supply chain here in a great way. And you also articulated, what the return on the investment was. So, I mean, I found this, very compelling, and I thought you presented it really well. I don't really have any sort of big gaps or things that I think that you should fill. And by the way, your team, of course, that's another thing that we always look for in these kinds of presentations. We always put that in the things that we put together at Flagship. It looks like you have a spectacular team. I mean, people have worked at, the top companies. They've obviously got a ton of experience. And probably in some of the places where you pitch this, there are going, I mean, I don't know those people. I can see they've been at great places, but probably when you pitch to some people, they're going to recognize these people. And, that, for me, that's always very reassuring. Every time I see something, and I've either worked with somebody, or I know who they are, or I know their reputation, and certainly where they come from. That's a very reassuring thing. So having a team like that, I think, is another great plus. Really good, I thought.
Thank you so much, Rupert. I'm humbled. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rupert. Excellent feedback. Mike, we're going to go to you now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to add after Rupert's feedback. That was great feedback, and it was really a great presentation, Kevin. And as Rupert said, I mean, your background stands out, and in terms of I see a lot of presentations, as I'm sure Rupert does, and this is definitely incredible. I mean, incredible job. I think it hit on, as Rupert said, all the different aspects of what we're looking for when we're thinking of the questions in our head. The only thing the questions that it did bring out for me were wanting to learn more about this space, because I don't know a ton about this space either, but it looks fascinating. It looks, as Rupert said, like you're taking so much out of the process. So I can imagine why customers are probably jumping for this. And it looks like you had a very successful fundraise for your stage, which is great. I mean, being able to raise $3 million pre-seed round is unusual in this market. And the kind of traction that you're showing in terms of the POs and the LOIs is incredible. So yeah, I mean, I kind of wish I would have met you earlier so we could be part of your pre-seed round, to be honest with you. But yeah, really nice job, fascinating presentation, and appreciate the work you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. I love
Thank you, Mike. Unfortunately, Doran has not been able to join us. I don't know what's happened, but that's okay. We will muster on without him. Kevin, I would like to give a moment then, because we do have time. Were there any particular questions that you had for the panel? Anything that you thought about your presentation, you wanted to know how it resonated with them?
I mean, I heard a lot of great feedback. One thing that I would like to ask, we're looking to move to Michigan, more specifically Kalamazoo. It was a battle between Kalamazoo and Detroit. Kalamazoo kind of won us out. What does it look like for a technology like ours in Michigan?
Well, I mean, I can start being, and I think, well, one of my brothers lives in Kalamazoo. He loves it there. Great town. West side of the state, I think, has grown a ton over the last, I don't know, Sandra, 20 plus years, and rivals, both sides of the state, I think, are great. I think there's a lot of support in Michigan for startups. There's, you can look at a lot of the headlines on we're becoming one of the top startup ecosystems, I think, in the country now. The state just put up $60 million for early stage funding that a number of funds have gotten to try to support startups in Michigan across the board in terms of industries. And then obviously with the space you're in, there's definitely a lot of logistics and a lot of things going on. So I would think from a location perspective, being near a lot of industry, I don't know. I'd like to learn more about that, but I would think that Michigan would be a great location, and I think you would have a lot of interested people looking to help.
Yeah, it'd be great to have a business like this in Kalamazoo, I think. Sandra will know much more than I do, but just one sort of anecdotal thing. I have a friend that I work with at our flagship offices called Margot Georgiadis. She was an executive at Google. She's the chief executive of one of our companies. Her husband is an investor, and he bought the Kalamazoo Grill Company, which is an incredibly high end. I mean, their grills are like, $15,000. Gwyneth Paltrow has them. They sell them to like movie stars. I don't have one, but they sell them to all sorts. But he loves, he was going to buy it and flip it, I guess, but he bought it and kept it. And he's built them new premises, invested in it. He loves Kalamazoo. He might be a useful contact. I know it's a different kind of business, but he is an investor, and he's certainly, learned to love the town and invested in it, and, different employee base, but he might have some learnings if you do decide to do that. I'm sure I could try to make an introduction for you. Margot probably knows some of the people who have come from Google who are related to your company. I wouldn't be surprised. So anyway, maybe irrelevant, but who knows? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, you never know until you turn over the rock. So
exactly.
Please.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. So we have I'm double checking. Nope. So we actually have somebody in our audience today who actually has been a former panelist who has chimed into the comments that he is happy to kind of step in and add some comments. So Jeff Renbelt, I am going to go ahead and tag you if you don't mind, because I would like to have three pieces of feedback. Jeff is with us from oh gosh, help me, Jeff. Renaissance Venture Capital.
That's okay, Renaissance Venture Capital. And so We're not a direct investor. We're a fund of funds. And actually, I'm an investor in Flagship. So we've been since the Moderna fund. So basically, yeah, exactly. There we go. Find it. So Kevin, you're picking a pretty good state. Again, if you're in Detroit or Kalamazoo, you've got some great resources, and there's pluses and minuses. But again, Michigan is pretty well connected. And so I would take where Kalamazoo does great. I would take some of the resources in Detroit. We just did Reindustrialized at that conference. We got a lot of great investors basically over for that. So you should look for that maybe next year. The next one we're doing is oh, good. There we go. I wasn't there, but my partner was there. So yeah, we missed each other.
Well, we showed our first prototype at New Mobility Futures.
Fantastic.
So
great. Yeah, New Lab is great. There's going to be a lot of great events, for investors. We're doing a demo day that comes up October 1st, and we've got a couple great, sort of deep tech investors that I know are already coming. Sort of the ones that might be okay for your seed are like 640 Oxford. They're local. If there we go. We know all the same people. Basic side, but we get a couple of them from the coast. So if you go to Undemo app right now, we're closing it up pretty quickly next week. I can give you the URL basically in the chat. And we get about 200 investors from all around the country at Ford Field, October 1st, basically side of it. It's all about one-on-one meetings. It's not about, sort of the side of it. It's all about the networking side of it. So I can offer that. But yeah, great presentation. Again, you've got the chops. We want to get you in front of the right investors, basically, that can evaluate this without, me saying it's like, but you definitely have it there. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Thank you. Thank you all. This is great feedback. Kevin, just so you know, there are some questions and comments in the chat, so please do feel free to kind of go over there and, read the feedback and answer the questions if you would like to. But we are going to keep moving because we have 2 more really cool presentations to do. So next, Jim Miller is next from Atterx. Am I saying that correctly, Jim?
It's Atterx, but close
Atterx.
enough.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's okay. More than close enough. So let me get going here.
Yes. Go ahead and put that in. Yep, presentation mode. Excellent.
All right.
And get your timer ready and panel, you're ready. We can begin anytime you'd like.
Well, good morning. My name is Jim Millard. I'm the CEO of Atterx Biotherapeutics, and we're developing clinical innovations for the prevention and treatment of multi-drug resistant bacterial infections. Most everyone knows that antibiotic resistant bacterial infections are becoming a bigger problem. But what's actually happened recently in this past year is the World Health Organization has actually declared it the #1 public health problem worldwide. And they came out with this quote that said, the problem is so serious that it threatens the achievements of modern medicine. A post-antibiotic era in which common infections and minor injuries can kill is a very real possibility. So very sobering. In fact, another study just recently came out that said if something's not done about this, that deaths due to antibiotic-resistant bacterial infections will grow to 10 million a year by the year 2050. That's up from only 700,000 in the year 2020. If that does occur, it will actually outstrip cancer as the #1 cause of death worldwide. So we're looking at a major problem in the growth of the drug-resistant bacterial infections out there. So what Atterx is doing is we actually have 2 products in development. Because of time constrictions today, I'm only going to focus on our lead product, which is getting ready to go into clinical trials, but also briefly introduce our second product. But our lead product that we call C1205 uses bacterial interference to treat catheter-associated urinary tract infections. Big problem in a hospital, which I'll share a little bit more in a minute. What it does is it introduces a harmless E. coli bacteria into the bladder to prevent infections. What's unique about this product is we actually have quite a bit of data on over 220 human patients in studies done in Europe and at the Baylor College of Medicine, establishing safety and efficacy, and also showing that it does prevent catheter-associated urinary tract infections. Briefly, our second product that's a little further behind in development is a topical that uses conjugation killing technology, which is simply the introduction of a highly engineered killer plasmid into the pathogenic bacteria and kills it immediately. It's very effective against gram-negative bacteria, all the ones that we've tested against. It is highly effective. The unique thing about this product is that no drug resistance to this product has been detected in any of our testing. Focusing though back on our product for the prevention of catheter-associated urinary tract infections, hospital-acquired infections are a big problem and a growing problem for hospitals. There's actually over 2 million hospital-acquired infections annually. Of those, the largest of the hospital-acquired infections are catheter-associated urinary tract infections. 36% of all hospital-acquired infections are urinary tract infections. 80% of those are due to catheter use. Most people think that treating a UTI is no big deal. Just throw some antibiotics at it and that'll take care of the problem. But in fact, that is less and less the case. In fact, over 45,000 people die from complications of urinary tract infections in the hospital every year. And one other thing we like to point out is Medicare stopped reimbursing hospitals for the treatment of infections that are acquired in the hospital. Obviously, catheter-associated urinary tract infections being the lead infection acquired in the hospital is a big costly issue to the hospital. They will be reimbursed for the prevention, which is what our product does, but no longer are they being reimbursed for treatment. This is our product, very simple. It's a freeze-dried biologic. It is resuspended with water, forming a gel, a lubricating gel, similar to the KY jelly that's used currently. So no change in the standard of care at the bedside. It's applied to the urinary tract, it's applied to the catheter and then inserted into the patient. Once it is in the patient, it induces a harmless E. coli that prevents the infection from occurring. It is very stable. It is resuspended, as I mentioned, with water. We do have, as I'll share a little bit more in a minute, some statistics on proving that it is quite safe and efficacious through these studies done both in Europe and the Baylor College of Medicine. And most recently, which was quite a milestone for the company, we received fast track designation from the FDA. So we are ready to begin our combined phase 1B, phase 2 trial, which I'll share a little more about that in a minute. So just a quick animation on how this product works. We have a coated catheter that contains our C1205 harmless E. coli. Once in the bladder, it quickly colonizes the bladder and forms a biofilm. And that biofilm has outcompeted the pathogenic bacteria for the nutrients in the urine. And so the pathogenic bacteria cannot compete and simply dies. So it's a very elegant approach to utilizing both the colonization, the strength of colonization, as well as the biofilm. So as I mentioned, over 220 patients have been treated in 14 studies across Europe and the US. The efficacy and safety has been very well established. As I'll show one study in a minute, we show significant reduction in the incidence of catheter-associated urinary tract infections. And what's unique across all these studies is in every single one of them, there was no symptom of any infection taking hold in a colonized bladder, and we had no adverse effects across any of those studies as well. Here is a study results that I like to share that was done at Baylor College of Medicine. In this study, the study subjects were experiencing up to 9.9 catheter-associated urinary tract infections a year. Once they were treated in our study, that incidence was reduced to less than 1 a year to 0.55. So a substantial reduction in the incidence of a catheter-associated urinary tract infection. This obviously reduces the cost, the need for antibiotic use, and hopefully the spread of antibiotic resistance. We are gearing up for our clinical trials. We have our IND approved by the FDA. Because we do have all the data on the 220 plus patients, the FDA did agree to a combined phase 1, phase 2 trial. And also, instead of the typical 100 plus enrollees for a study like this, they've agreed to only 40 total enrollees necessary, 10 in our phase 1B and 30 in phase 2. We did receive the fast track designation, so we're hoping to begin treating patients by the end of the year. We're currently in discussions with some of the top spinal cord injury rehabilitation hospitals in the country. Right now, we believe we're only going to need to be in 2 to conduct them. And we're right now, the selection process looks like it's going to be what was formerly the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago, one of the top rehab hospitals in the country, as well as the Rehabilitation Hospital at the University of Miami. Just very briefly, we do have a timeline here we're looking to stick to, which is tied to our fundraising. We are focusing on getting the product manufactured for the clinical trials. The big milestone here for us, though, is Q4 of 25, Q1 of 26, when we begin the patient enrollment and treating of the patients in our phase 1B clinical trial. We are focusing on indwelling catheters first in hospitalized patients, long-term care facility patients, patients with neurogenic bladders. That is a very large market. We also do believe, though, this will be equally effective with intermittent catheters. Here is showing a couple of the products that are out there currently addressing other hospital-acquired infections, and our pricing and reimbursement strategy is very much in line with that. We have a very strong portfolio, IP portfolio. This first patent is licensed with Baylor College of Medicine, but we also have 2 additional patents that are very strong around storage, delivery, composition, and preparation/manufacturing of our product. We also have some international patents as well. We have 3 total full-time employees, myself, very involved in working with early stage companies. My primary roles have been around the fundraising side of things, as well as I did have a stint and as an investment banker in M&A. We have 2 very, very deep, we have 2 scientists here, PhDs, very deep industry knowledge, particularly the expertise in the bacterial interference. We also have a very impressive group of medical advisors that are very active in what we're doing. They were very involved in the drafting of our IND and the study design, 3 urologists and 1 surgeon focusing on wound care. We are looking to have a liquidity event, probably towards the end of our phase 2, which is where a lot of these transactions have been occurring towards the later part of phase 2 and approval. The first 2 listed here were done in 2023, very focused on anti-infective. The 2 companies that were acquired had very strong pipeline of anti-infective drug development. We are raising a convertible debt round of $5 million. The use of funds is really focusing on that manufacturing, and of course the setup and the oversight, management, monitoring, data management of the clinical trial is where our laser focus is, on getting this trial up and going, having the manufacturing timing sync with that. And so that is going to be the primary uses of funds and convertible debt. We do have quite a few current investors here that these logos might look familiar to some of you. So we're very pleased to have these investors as part of our team right now. And that is it. Ready
Perfect.
for questions.
Thank you. Great presentation, Jim.
A little over 10 minutes, but I tried to stick to it.
I know you did. Mike, we're going to start with you. Can you unmute and give some feedback?
Yeah, sure. Well, Jim, nice to randomly see you here this morning. As you might have seen on the last slide, we're an investor through the Michigan Angel Fund. We came in on the last round, and we're looking to participate in this round as well as through our Spark Capital Fund. So the full disclosure there, but it was a great presentation, Jim, as always. I appreciate just the update, and it's always helpful for me as a non-life scientist to hear the presentation as many times as possible. But and I thought the video was really cool too, to see that. That's always helpful in understanding the technology. I don't was the market slide. I don't know in terms of the need in the beginning. I don't know if that was new or not, but that was interesting to see the prevalence of this and how important this could be over the next 10 plus years in terms of just the bacterial infections on the rise. I don't have a ton of feedback because I've probably seen this enough times, but you do such a great job presenting, and true gentleman as well. So I always appreciate working with you. And I'd actually like to hear Rupert's feedback in particular, given your work there at Flagship. But we'll probably be in touch later this week, Jim.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I do look forward to it very much. Very much.
Thank you. We're going to toss it over to Rupert then. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks. That's super interesting. And obviously the antimicrobial resistance is a colossal problem with huge challenges for the development of more conventional antibiotics because of the sequencing of use and the trouble getting any kind of return on the investment develop them. So I love this from the point of view of prevention and a totally different type of intervention. The nearest thing I can think of, although it's a little different because it is it's more of a treatment than a prevention, but in some ways this reminds me of the microbiome project that Ceres, which is a flagship company, has for Clostridium difficile.
Yes.
That got partnered with Nestle, who were probably not the ideal people to be doing hospital care. It was part of their foray into healthcare, but interesting in the same way. And I assume the patent coverage is because you've created a sort of novel bacterium, or I mean, you mentioned some of the sort of manufacturing and that kind of stuff, but I that was one of my questions, was around patent coverage, and then you went into the strength of the patents. That's obviously going to be absolutely crucial to anybody who wants to partner with you to take this forward in the long term.
Correct.
Can somebody just come up with another version and undercut you in some way? But that would come out in a diligence. But I think it's really good that you address that. A question that occurred to me while you were presenting was just around, are there any risks of the bacteria picking up pathogenicity from, mingling with pathogenic bacteria? I mean, E. coli is obviously a cause of UTIs. You wonder whether there's any longer term risk that you might actually introduce something and then get, some event that causes your bacteria to be pathogenic. If I was listening to this, I would probably want to understand why that wouldn't occur. Maybe it's a naive question, but that's just one thing that occurred to me. I thought there probably isn't any real competition for this. I mean, you talked about other products, but they're not really direct competitors in the sense that they're more traditional antibiotics. But overall, I thought, very interesting, very well presented. You start with the massive scale of the problem and then did a nice job of narrowing into, this particular product and the scale of this particular problem, which is obviously huge and devastating. Your data and the fact that you are going to be able to run such a small trial, I think speaks absolutely volumes to this, because whenever you have a new drug and you can demonstrate its value in such a tiny study from an efficacy point of view, obviously you have to collect all the safety data. That generally means you're onto something good. In my experience, when you're trying to eke out some kind of signal in a large trial, that often tends to sort of disappear over time, but that's not going to happen here. So it's very compelling. I also had a question about your other product, the topical one. My son is a student athlete, and these kids are bedeviled by MRSA infections in the locker room. Is the topical aimed at that kind of infection? I know you didn't talk about it a lot, but I'm just
our current product, as you know, there's the gram positive and the gram negative.
Yeah.
Our current product is focusing right now on the gram negative, treatment of the gram negative. We actually do have in the pipeline, but very far back in the R&D stage, another topical that does address the gram positive.
That'd be great.
But we did receive quite a bit of non-dilutive funding in the early development of the topical for the gram negative from the Department of Defense and the Warfighter program. And the majority of the infections that were coming out of the war theaters were gram negative.
Right. Okay. So those are both interesting projects too, I think, over time. Yeah. So I don't know whether you want to comment on the pathogenicity risk. Maybe it's just a trivial thing, or there's a really good explanation. But other than that, I thought you put together a very nice presentation, and it's a great story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Great.
And again, we do have a long scientific version of why we don't believe it will develop,
I'm sure
become
you
a
do.
pathogen. So we can certainly add some more. And that's one thing we addressed very early on in due diligence.
Yeah, maybe one slide that just says, this isn't, this is not going to happen for the following reasons. Just in case you have some medically oriented person on the investment, side. But yeah, great.
No, great advice.
Congratulations on your data. I mean, it's don't often see stuff that looks as compelling as that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Jeff, would you like to pop in? I'd like to give, a three review if possible. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but you volunteered earlier. Would you volunteer again to give a little feedback?
Yeah, I can always, I always have a comment. I don't know if it's worth anything, basically side of it. But yeah, I'll add on to Rupert's comments. Congratulations, getting through those phase ones is, at such a small, N is just amazing. Again, it starts to shift to just like the reimbursement stuff. You mentioned that, but again, nailing that down, because that will give you the market size pretty well, and making sure that that's pretty, again, you're driving towards that exit after the phase two. It's sort of understanding how big the phase two is, how many dollar amounts you're going to need, because again, the exit environment has changed. I don't know. I think Rupert can probably comment more on this, but it's like, okay, is it really going to exit at phase two? Is that market still there? What's the multiple at that side of it? And so that would be sort of, you've done a really good job of keeping the money in low, it looks like. Again, I'd have to look at the cap table, but again, I think I've looked at this probably at some point side of it, but the money in, it's like, how big is the phase going to be? How many dollars are you going to be? And then what's your exit, going to look like to make this actually a very good investment now is sort of the biggest side of it. But, you've covered everything. So it's like, okay, now I want to look at the data room, and you have that in the data room. It would sort of be my next step side of it. So yeah, those are the only other comments I would sort of say, but it does a great job of leading into those next comments. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for letting me put you on the spot. I appreciate that.
No problem.
And Jim, to wrap up, was there anything specific that you would like to ask any of the panelists? Anything about your presentation that you wanted to get a specific piece of feedback on?
Well, first of all, I just appreciate the feedback. And again, some of what they're talking about as it relates to the movement towards a liquidity event, towards the end of phase two. Again, it sounds like one thing that would be helpful is a little bit more specific, comparable information, a little bit more activity, what's going on, and timeliness, because candidly, some of the transactions towards the end of my list are a bit dated and things are moving at warp speed. So just curious again, if that would be helpful as, digging in and giving a little bit more specifics, even of the more recent transactions, a little more detail on exactly what the companies, the target companies are working on, and how that aligns a little closer to what we're doing.
Anyone want to chime in with that? Rupert, Jeff, Mike? Would that be helpful?
I guess it was more of a statement and a question, so I.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
think you got my, that's what I was looking at, basically side of it. And again, I just, again, I look at it from the LP standpoint. The GPs that are communicating back to me are saying the exit environment is different now. How is this, affecting your company in this new environment now? And what does that mean? And I don't know if the answer, but I know things are different now. You know what I mean? So and again, I looked at that exit list and go, yeah, some of those are old. You know what I mean? So if I can see that your GPs, the other thing that would be interesting is that looking at your cap table right now, it's mostly like, pre-seed investors. What are those Series A seed investors telling you? And, how can you, are you answering those questions? It would be sort of the question side of it. So, yeah.
Okay. Great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. And we are not done yet. Go ahead and stop sharing your screen, Jim, because we have one more exciting presentation to go. We have Justin Scott with us. Justin, you're with SitSense, and our unmute. There you are. And go ahead and put your presentation up. Excellent. We see your slides, and so whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and begin.
All right, perfect. Good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Scott, as Sandra mentioned, and I am here to talk to you about SitSense, a company with a smart recliner that knows your needs before you do. Now, Tammy Bush and I co-founded this company to create devices that act as electronic caregivers. And the reason that we did that is because, well, let's see, if this will advance. There we go. When patients or other vulnerable populations in hospitals sit in recliners for long periods of time, they get pressure injuries. These are commonly known as bed sores. And unfortunately, this is actually pretty common because each year there are 2.5 million pressure injuries in the United States, and this leads to 60,000 deaths, as well as over $26 billion in medical and malpractice expenses. To prevent these injuries, you'll often see nurses repositioning patients to help prevent them. However, the physical stress from doing that does cause back pain and injuries to nurses that reduces the quality of care that they can provide and takes days off of their work. So there's this inherent tension with implementing these repositioning protocols where if nurses reposition patients more often, the nurses will get injured more often. But if the patients aren't repositioned often enough, they will get pressure injuries, and the hospitals are responsible for both of these types of injuries because hospital-acquired pressure injuries are deemed a preventable event by insurance, and therefore they're not covered. So our solution to this is the SitSense Medical Recliner, a automated caregiver that automatically repositions patients based off of our research-driven design and our repositioning protocol. This reduces the risk of pressure injuries and nursing injuries at the same time, thereby reducing the cost of healthcare while also improving at the same time with more repositioning and less injuries to staff. If you want to see a demonstration of how this works, you can see it on the left-hand side of the screen where you can actually see the recliner moving around. And our patented recliner design does use unique segments that no other recliner has in it to reposition naturally around an occupant's joints. And thereby these positions are not available in any other recliner, and they are able to redistribute pressure while the person sits in it. And you can see that on the right-hand side of the screen, where those pressure mats, if there's anywhere that's a blue area, that's a low pressure area, whereas all of the yellow areas are high pressure areas. This repositioning and this pressure redistribution is monitored by sensors embedded throughout the chair so that we can monitor that redistribution. And this entire design has been evaluated by a regulatory consultant and determined to be a code INO, which is a class 2 medical device that is 510(k) exempt, which means we don't have to go through the pre-market notification process. Now, this technology and the IP behind it were developed while Tammy Bush and I were working at Michigan State University, so we're going to be licensing the technology from them. Earlier this year, we won an Amtrak Life Sciences grant to conduct the design for manufacture process, and we also have applied for BAF and SBIR funding to help with the commercial and technical development of the company, including the design of a bariatric recliner, and that's where we're at right now. At the end of this year, we're going to finish up our licensing agreement with Michigan State University and also get our digital footprint development underway so that we have more branding materials and logos, website, that type of thing, before we conduct a real-world pilot and then confirm a regulatory classification. That will lead us to our pre-seed round at the end of this year, which we will use to document our good manufacturing practices, which will be needed, and then conduct our first sales in 2026. These sales and this recliner are entering into the $4.4 billion medical recliner market, which has been validated by numerous reports and also conversations with administrators and other people in hospitals. And there's a $1.76 billion global rehabilitation recliner market within this. Our work shows that there's an $874 million early mobilization market, and this is based on the number of intensive care units in hospitals, as well as the cost of our recliner. Our goal is to put a recliner in 10% of these units by 2030, thus generating $87 million in revenue. Now, both this market and our goals in it have been evaluated with clinicians and hospital administrators who have purchasing power for these types of devices. And one of those administrators actually told us when we demonstrated it to her that she would buy one of these a month until all of her rooms were full. So we have strong interest from both the clinicians and the administrators on the hospital side. Now, in terms of our business model, we will reach our goals by selling directly to these hospitals at a unit cost of about $7,800, whereas the manufacturing for it costs about $3,500. These direct sales will be to ICU administration, who will also act on our behalf as clinical champions during value analysis committee meetings that determine larger hospital-wide purchases. We're exploring potential growth through partnerships with companies that already have channels to these hospitals, and among these are Lazy Boy Healthcare, Pride Mobility, Stryker, and Champion Chair, who already have those established connections. And then once we have our recliners in our target hospitals, we will generate recurring revenue through software as a service, valued at approximately $10 per month, and we're undergoing ongoing customer discovery for this part of our business model. Our early adopters, we've identified the ICUs at Henry Ford Health and Trinity Health, as they've both helped partner with the development of the SitSense recliner. Once we have our initial sales in those facilities, we're going to reach out to other facilities from Henry Ford and Trinity outside of Detroit and Grand Rapids. And at the same time, we're developing our marketing materials for use at clinical in-services and conferences where clinicians often learn about these types of technologies. So we're going to use these materials to reach out to other hospitals in the region, as well as hospitals across the country as our next target market. And this will be done by reaching out to chief nursing officers and other hospital administration who have that departmental purchasing power and can be our clinical champions. At the same time, we're also exploring expansion into the long-term care market, and that includes 2.6 million rooms in assisted living and nursing home facilities around the United States, as well as home care use. So that's the next market after hospitals. In terms of our business model canvas, which I'll just show right here, we've demonstrated and we validated all of these different segments of our business model canvas through multiple structured customer discovery programs like iCore and FFMI FastPace, as well as independent interviews and testing sessions that we've conducted. And we've validated our value propositions, customers, revenue streams, among all of the other segments here. And we're undergoing ongoing customer discovery to get an even more granular understanding, as well as validate new hypotheses that we're coming up with. That customer discovery has also allowed us to generate a financial projection for the next 5 years, where right now SitSense is a pre-revenue company as of 2025, with our first sales projected in 2026. We are going to scale up our production and reach out to more hospitals throughout 2026 and 2027 before we reach profitability in 2028. And then through expansion throughout the country, we anticipate reaching our goals in 2029 by 2030 to hit that mark that I talked about earlier. This customer discovery has also helped us see where we stand out as a company, because SitSense really does have the first smart medical recliner that automatically repositions using data-driven feedback. There are other technologies such as powered recliners, and there are repositioning alarms that help nurses keep schedules, but each of these require the clinician to initiate, if not physically execute each reposition, which might also require multiple clinicians to do for one person. And the SitSense does this automatically. In terms of our team, Tammy Bush and I are the co-founders of SitSense. We've been working together for 9 years to understand and build a unique understanding of how body position while seated affects pressure distribution. And Dr. Bush, as a professor of mechanical engineering at Michigan State University, she has a long track record of translational work in the biomechanics space. This work has led us to winning the 2025 Innovation of the Year Award from the MSU Research Foundation. And we are working with Vebke Hagendorf-Schroeder, an advisor who has a portfolio of companies that she's coached through the startup process. So we're looking to build out our team even further before our first sales in 2026. And to that end, we're looking for about $1 million to sell 30 SitSense recliners in 2026, where that will go towards our sales and marketing, accelerating our R&D for the bariatric model, and also building out our data analytics platform for those software as a service subscriptions. After we conduct our initial sales, we'll be looking for about $2 million to scale our recliner production and our outreach to hospitals across the country to reach those goals by 2030. Again, thank you all for listening. My name is, again, Justin Scott, one of the co-founders of SitSense, the company that has a recliner that knows your needs before you do. I'll take any questions. Thanks.
Excellent. Nicely done. Thank you, Justin. Rupert, we're going to go back and start with you. Can you unmute and share some thoughts?
Yeah, well, about 1 million years ago, I was a diabetologist, so I'm familiar with these terrible pressure sores and things and how incredibly difficult they are to treat. So I think this is, from that perspective, what a great idea. If you can use modern intelligent technology to try to stop these things from happening, because they're just so hard to deal with once they do. And of course, you're right that poor nurses have to turn patients all the time, and you know, that's really heavy work. And so it makes complete sense to me from a sort of conceptual idea. Just a few thoughts. I mean, I don't know enough to know how hard this would be for somebody else to copy and come up with a, I mean, I realize you have patents and that kind of thing, but you know, it feels like you've got a big data set, you know, you've built algorithms that drive the chair, but I would want to know a little bit more about the sort of barriers to some, you know, cheaper entry or something that could you know, cause you challenges in that review. So in that respect, so I would probably suggest you put a little bit more in about that. Then with regards to kind of scaling up, I mean, you showed us that this is a really big market. You're trying to raise some money to make some of these things and get a foot in the door. I don't know much about selling medical equipment, but it kind of feels to me like this would be a situation where you want to get as much of this market as quickly as you possibly can, so that you become sort of embedded into it before, you know, someone else says what a great idea and starts their own version. So, you know, it didn't come across, you're talking to companies like Stryker, but how important is that really to the success of this excellent idea? You know, do you really need to get with one of these companies that can just blow this up and sell it pretty much globally? Or do you think that there's time to do what you want to do, which is sort of sell 30 chairs and then build some more and get a little bigger from there? So that didn't quite stand out to me, but those are just sort of minor comments. I mean, the idea is great and the explanation of it and so on is really good, but just those couple of things kind of stood out to me.
Really appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Mike, we're going to go to you. Go ahead and unmute and share your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Justin. I thought it was really interesting. Good to meet you, you know, kind of in our backyard here, and I know you're raising, so I'm sure we'll be talking more. But yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that Rupert said. You know, that's kind of the first question that popped up in my mind, was just around competition and what that would look like. And you put that in there, and it looks like you know, you do a lot of things that they don't. And it sounds like you've been working on this for, you mentioned, I think 9 years. So, you know, it sounds like there's a lot of work that's gone into this and some IP. So, you know, hopefully, to Rupert's point, that kind of puts you ahead of the curve. I thought it was interesting how your partners on the one slide were the same as your competitors. And so to Rupert's point, is that, and maybe that's strategic. I don't know how you're thinking about the go-to-market, that maybe you actually, you know, want them to be resellers and then become the likely acquirers. But does that also put them in a position to understand the IP quickly and find ways around how to just reverse engineer what you've done? It's hard to know, and but I get it from a go-to-market perspective. It makes a lot of sense that you'd want to have their scale, but maybe there is a way to find other partners that might be able to help, that would be so close to home in terms of the technology aspect. I don't know what kind of work you know, Lazy Boy Healthcare and Stryker are doing in terms of trying to innovate in this space. Maybe they sell these, you know, a whole bunch per year, and they're fine with that, and they haven't done a lot of innovation. And so maybe it's a bit of a sleepy market at this point. But you know, if you start making waves, maybe they say, okay, well, it's time for us to do a little of our own innovation and start to compete. Or maybe they just buy you, and maybe that's what you're thinking. So that's always kind of a dicey line, I would say, but definitely something we would want to dig into as part of a diligence process. But congratulations. I mean, that's great to win the accolades, and that's a nice M-Track award. And it sounds like you guys have done a lot of work on this. And so, yeah, it's a great, seems like it'd be a great Michigan story. I'll say that, just from the furniture industry perspective, and, you know, the healthcare folks that we have. I mean, they're all close to home, obviously. So seems like you're in the right space from where we're at in the state of Michigan. Yeah, I happy to help as you're kind of getting into the process of fundraising here, because that's a whole different animal probably. I don't know if you've done it in the past, but you know, happy to help and talk through more of these issues offline. So thanks for the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Jeff, in the spirit of getting a third perspective, would you like to share?
I think I'm going to be a broken record a lot of times,
Okay.
but again, it's the business side of things. You're getting into fundraising now, so again, we're going to start focusing on exits, and again, it's you know who's your competition, who's your exiter, you know, is the hospital market the first best market, or is it better to go, because again, their longer sales cycle is their shorter sales cycle. And the big thing that got out from me was no mention really of product financing, because again, you're building something and your POs are going to lag basically what you're going to have inventory. So, you know, you might want to partner to manufacture just for that, basically side of it, or you're going to need a lot of dollars basically, again, to say, if I'm going to, hit the market, I'm going to need a lot of money basically just to manufacture these and run that side of it. So I would start to, again, you're in fundraising mode now. I'd start to dig in on the product side, on the exit side, it doesn't mean that's where it's going to go, but you should start to have a plan in that area, even at the pre-seed seed stage, because people are going to start asking it, because it's like, once you put money in, we got to get your money out. But yeah, it's nice to see this. I think I looked at this as an M-Track, so it's nice to see you sort of, come full circle. Again, you get to see the same people over and over again in Michigan. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeff. Justin, before we transition out, was there anything specific that you wanted to ask the panel? Anything burning on your end?
So I'm hearing a lot about just like part of like what is the barrier? Is it is it getting to market and building those relationships so fast that no one can catch up? What is that? That is something that I'm hearing from everyone. So what would be, for example, what timeline for scaling up would you like to see? What would that look like on your end as the investors?
I can say a comment. Again, it doesn't really matter. It matters in your plan, So again, if there is no barrier to entry on, the patents, or it's low on the patent side, that means you got to scale fast. That means you need more dollars. Again, all these translate into your business plan for your dollars. So yeah, and again, when you look at the presentation, I couldn't figure out what your plan was, or it was unclear sort of how to get it. So, it has to line up. Basically we're looking for consistencies, and that might, bump out certain people or say yes to certain people, but you should have a plan in that area, because it will start to say it will imbibe your fundraising, it will imbibe, your exit, all that stuff. Again, you start making choices, you start, whittling down your exit potential by the dollar amounts you raise and side of things. So, you can solve all these problems different ways. It's like, how are you going to solve them? Yeah.
I guess one way to think about it is, what kind of, you've got this total market. What kind of share of it do you think you can capture? And then how quickly do you want to get there? And then what do you need to actually do that? Do you have to raise money? Do you have to go to some sort of partner? Do you need Stryker to do it? It just sort of, I mean, to turn it into like a world I'm used to, you sort of presented like a proof of concept study to me, right? So we're going to make these 30 chairs, and we're going to get into the market and see kind of how things go, but there wasn't a sort of complete development plan to follow it to get to the the place that you really want to get to. And I just sort of feel like especially in this where, you know, if people see it as a good idea, they surely will try to make version. I mean, it is a good idea, so people may try to copy you. And if they've got, even if they've got a less good product, if they do it cheaply and they go fast, they might just squeeze you out, and you'll lose your opportunity. I think that's kind of what we're wondering about.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you know, projections are always wrong, right? So they're never right, but I do try to think of them as a useful tool as you're trying to build out the model, and you know, you can then I think iterate on the projections as you're starting to build out, and once you go to market and you start to sense, okay, this looks like what the sales velocity can be. You're you know, I think in the go-to-market too, I often think of it as you know, you've got the product side that you've been working to iterate and experiment on for 9 years. The go-to-market can be that same iteration process, hopefully not 9 years. You know, you try to figure that out a lot quicker. But I think there's cycles of kind of iterating and figuring out what works, but within the constraints of what we're talking about, to make sure that you're, you know, hopefully not stepping in any traps along the way. And then you find, you know, those couple of tactics that work to get your sales velocity up. And then I think you start to then build, you iterate on the projections, which can help you think through, you know, your costs and what you need to do to increase your sales velocity. So I don't know if that's helpful, but.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. That was great. Okay, we are in the home stretch, everyone. So I just have a few things to wrap up with before we head out of here. So I would first of all always like to thank my presenters today for sharing your innovative companies with us. Some great ideas. Michigan is amazing. You innovators are amazing. We love your companies. We love your ideas. Thank you. I just love this event because I get to hear about so many cool things that are happening around the state. So thank you all. I would also like to give a hearty thank you to our investor panel for offering such great, insightful feedback. Rupert, thank you for coming back. Mike, thank you for being a first timer. We hope to have you back in the future. And Jeff, thank you, my friend, for stepping in. This is not the first time you've stepped in to lend a hand. I do appreciate it. My panelists are always great, and I love you all, so thank you. And last but not least, thank you to all of the rest of you for joining us today. Thank you for asking really insightful questions in the chat. We appreciate that. We hope you'll join us again. Our next event will be on October 28th. As always, we'll have 3 new companies and 3 new investor panelists. You can register for that and any other upcoming events we have on our website. I have dropped that in the chat, so feel free to go see. We don't have a lot of events at the Innovation Center, I'll admit that, but we do have a few, and you are welcome to join us for those. So again, thank you all for your attendance and your participation. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful rest of your summer, and we hope to see you next time. So thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.